In the 19th century, there was a prince named Karna, Dewa Agung Karna, and this was in a difficult period of a disease or strife in the village, and he was seeking a solution. And he went into a very deep meditation, and he saw this dance in his meditation. It's what they call a wahyu, or a celestial vision. Upon waking from that meditation, he realized that the sacred mass that had already been in the temple for, they say, since the 16th century, he realized that those were the faces of the girls, these young girls in his dream. So he taught the local musicians the music he had heard, and the Legong dance was created. 3 years ago, roughly now, when we had the invitation from Cal Performances to perform here, we, that is Gamelan Sekar Jaya, came up with this idea, essentially to dramatize this story, this legend, well, for Balinese, this reality of the dream that Karna had had, and how the Legong dance, which is now known everywhere in Bali, was created. We immediately thought of people like Ibu Arini, who is certainly one of Bali's greatest teachers, and Ketut Kodi, who's a dalang, a puppeteer, and a dancer, and a mask maker, and a wonderful philosopher. He plays the title role of Karna. And Nyoman Winda, who many people regard as Bali's finest composer. And we also brought ShadowLight Productions into the picture because we had worked with Larry Reed and his crew before and had loved their work, but especially for this piece, which kind of has to do with various worlds in Balinese cosmology, what they call Sakala and Niskala, the visible and the invisible worlds, that having the shadow screen and that whole dimension, in addition to live dancers in front of the screen, would bring that out.
Of all the puppets that you saw tonight, all the shadow figures, there were only 2 from the traditional Balinese set. All the rest are cardboard cutouts. We've been working together to create this new kind of shadow theater, which is really the same as the ancient kind in its intent and in the way we go about it. The difference is that we've taken a one-man show and added 7, 10, 15 people to it, but we're still trying to say something through shadows, that shadows have been used as a way of communicating and keeping past thoughts alive and making them relevant to the present. What you see tonight is kind of within the Balinese tradition, but it's completely different in terms of the way the shadows are used, the size of them and everything else, different than anything that has ever been done traditionally in Bali. We tried to really bring something of the culture to the screen in a way that is actually more cinematic than a traditional shadow play. Because the significance of shadows in Indonesia is a means of communicating with ancestors, it's a means of keeping the past alive, making it relevant to the present.
Some people do say that there's a relationship between the wayang, the way the puppets work, and the way dance works. Many of the movements are really mimicking the movements of nature. So all of the dance and the arts are really tied to both the divine world and the world of nature.
I've never been to Bali. I'm a big fan of the groups and had seen many of their concerts. So for me, it was a very exciting moment to come in, to act as an outside eye, to organize such a massive work of 70 people on stage. There's one very wonderful scene that you'll see where Prince Karna comes to a village and has the dance teacher in the show begin to teach the young students the dance. And one of the things that was really wonderful about the collaborative process is because we all thought it was important to have Ibu, who in real life is a teacher, actually show some of that process of how dance is taught, how much the teacher physically manipulates the body and stretches the fingers and the arms and uses the fingers to as a catalyst for the eye movements of the dancers.
Dances that have been created since the 40s, of which there are many, have all been really based in some fundamental way on the Legong movements. They follow the exact classical form that was developed in the Legong dance. The students at the Academy, STSI, often create new versions of Legong. And the movements in them, they're based on Legong, but they're new movements as well. But the Asli version, the original version, is still alive in that village of Katewa, where every 210 days, without fail, they always do that dance. The traditional way of choosing dancers was to see which young girls went into trance in the ceremony, and then they would be chosen, and they would be the ones who would perform Legong. There's kind of a very interesting cyclic method of transmission that the dancers train, I would say, for at least a year or two before they perform, maybe 3 or 4. And then as soon as they're done, because with the onset of puberty, they can no longer do this sacred dance, they become the teachers of the next set. Then the ones who really love it and are completely devoted might continue to teach into their adulthood, but at very least, they would become the helpers and the trainers of the next group of girls. Right here is a Gamelan Kebiar. This is the most popular kind of gamelan in Bali. The Balinese cosmology of balance, the kind of yin-yang cosmology that's embedded in everything that happens really in their society, is expressed quite beautifully in the gamelan because every single note has a partner note which is slightly detuned with that other note by a very small amount, so that when you play those two partner notes together, the difference in frequency causes a beating or a kind of tremolo between the tones. And that's something that gives the sound of the gamelan as a whole its very characteristic and quite beautiful sonority. In yet another expression of this same yin-yang concept, which the Balinese call rua bineda, or the complementary quality of opposites, you play in an interlocking fashion. That is, one part plays a certain rhythmic or melodic pattern, and another part plays another pattern which kind of fits in the spaces exactly. So you get a composite that neither one could do alone. That is quite elaborate, quite complex, and quite beautiful. So yet again, another expression of their philosophy in the actual instruments themselves.
Between Gong Kebiar and Angklung, we have one tune. It fits, and from there, I start to compose melody. That's where it's not gonna be what is very sudden, the transition between Gong Kebiar to the Angklung. We have to find one tune fits together. From that, we develop the melody to go to the other melody. That's where we do. This music, we have a pair. It has to be worked together. We can't play only one drum for this music, for the dance. It has to be together.
In Bali, there's a concept of a kind of central unity, that there is an overall balance, and that the two parts of the world, that good and evil, are in fact two sides of the same coin, and that you have a whole world, that you're always approaching the world as a unity. You cannot rid the world of either of these powers, and in fact, any effort to try to do so would be impossible. But you can try to balance them, to overcome the danger, so that in fact it's not tipped one way or the other, but you find a sense of the balancing. Within the Balinese philosophy, there is the sense that you are going to reach your goal through the arts rather than through fighting or through violent means. For this reason, in Bali, you will always find these arts are a part of any ceremony.
I mentioned earlier that the dance was created in a period of strife in Bali. It actually was something that was seen then, and continues to be seen as a healing dance. That ceremony and dance and music in Bali are not just entertainment. Far from it. They're offerings. People often say that when they dance, they feel that they're doing a religious offering. But even beyond that, there's something that have a great social power in Bali. They literally bring villages back together. They have a healing power, and that's something that we really tried to bring out. We've really tried to emphasize that and make it clear in this, how the two forces, Karna, representing good essentially, and Rangda the witch, the embodiment of evil, are confronting one another. At that moment, the image of the Legong reappears on the shadow screen, And rather than it being one side winning or losing, rather it transforms the whole scene. It moves it to a different dimension. You know, evil's still there, good is still there. They're all still turning, as the Balinese would say, and this is the power of ritual.
Sekar Jaya is modeled on Bali, but it's a Bay Area group. So it really is a meeting of culture. Almost 24 years old, and it's always been trying to find an authentic voice. And so I think creating a new piece and searching for an authentic road has been the goal. It's part of a larger community of people who have really dedicated themselves to a deeper interaction with this art. So it's 3 months of rehearsal and 30 years of relationship. The members of Gamelan Sekar Jaya are not paid. They're not doing this as their professional job. They're doing this because they get a great joy out of it.